is, of course, a reminder of what is the mandate of the G20. And the mandate of the G20 is development and growth. And I make that point not because you are all unaware of it. You are, of course, extremely sensitive to it. But because if there is something today which is really under stress, it is development and growth. That large parts of the world today are following G20. They have a stake in G20. They would like to influence G20. There are countries outside the room, outside the table, and that is because they find their development and their growth today under jeopardy. And they would like G20 to do something about this. Now, having said that, I look at the world today, and obviously it's not an easy place. But if I were to, in a way, conceptually describe it, I would say the two big problems are, on the one hand, East-West divide, and on the other hand, a North-South gulf. And the two are not unrelated in a way to each other. Now, it's important for the G20, for the T20, that each of these is addressed, and that the two problems which have to some degree an interplay, that both of them are harmonized. And I think that's really quite a challenge, certainly a challenge for diplomacy, but I would argue even in the intellectual world, I think the East-West connect, the East-West today friction, I would say, and the North-South gaps. Now, in terms of the issues today before the G20, nothing I say would really be a surprise to you people. Clearly, there are very deep concerns about fuel, about food, about fertilizers, concerns about, and a lot of these directly emanate from the Ukraine conflict. There are pre-existing concerns about the impact of COVID, not just on health, but impact of COVID on development, on resources, on debt, on disruptions, even on governance. And then there's the pre-existing, which is issues like debt and trade, which have got aggravated, partly because of COVID, but also because of the Ukraine conflict. And then how does this all play out on two very, very crucial issues for not just countries, but really for the future of the planet, which is the SDG, whose achievement today is clearly under stress, and climate action. That, if you are looking at a world where the problems are getting bigger, but the resources are getting more stressed, where the attention span is not what it should be, then I think we really have a big problem on our hands. Now, a lot of this, I must tell you, was discussed, when we took up the presidency. We decided that if we are to be fair to the countries who are not in the room, and it's important to be fair to them because a lot of these countries are the countries who are facing the brunt of the problems that I described to you, that we need to hear them. It should not be our intuitive sense of what they feel. So we actually went through this exercise of what was called Voice of Global South, where 125 countries participated in deliberations in the month of January. So many of the sentiments that I expressed to you, the assessments that I share, the concerns that I convey, these are not just our own. These are the distilled essence of what 125 countries today, at least 125, feel about the state of the world. Now, we are now chronologically significantly down the way where the G20 is concerned. A lot of the ministerials have taken place. Some of the important ministerials still, some of them have happened. Some have more rounds to go. And in a way, you could say the jury is still out. We've had some achievements. We've still had a lot of work in progress. There is some which we hope will progress. But I would certainly flag the development ministers meeting, partly, of course, because I happen to chair it, but the fact that we were able to get a consensus around the idea of a sustainable lifestyle, that we were able to get really a full focus on the challenges today that SDG realization is facing. We sought to put women-led development more strongly on the table. And of course, one of the perennial issues, but which another track was looking at, and as I said, that's still work under progress, is in regard to multilateral development bank reform. In all of this, of course, there is also the issue of whether we can come up with a credible form of green financing. I think it's something which goes to multiple tracks out here. But I would really conclude by stressing that it's important for the G20 to realize that what unites us today is more than what separates us. I'm not in denial of the fact that there are deep differences within the G20, but I do believe that there's a larger agenda to humanity, a larger agenda for the planet, and it's therefore absolutely vital that we find a common landing point when the summit takes place in September. We hope for a very substantive and for a very impactful summit. And in a way, your own experience would have showed you, we have tried to do in India the G20 a little bit differently. We have tried to make this much more connected with the people. We want our society really to use the G20 experience to become more global, to understand that the problems of the world in some ways are really indivisible, and at the same time it's our endeavor also to ensure that all those who come to India from G20, from the guest countries, from the international organizations, from other countries, that they have an opportunity to see the changes in India, because for us it's really been a truly transformational decade. I mean, the India that you see in 2023 is a very different India than what it was in 2014.